Welcome to episode 56 of the Talking Friars podcast. I'm your host, Ben Fadden, here today with a special guest, Paul Reindl of Ben & Woods, producer of Ben & Woods on 97.3 The Fan. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk.
Hey, Ben. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I've talked with Stephen Woods before. That was a really fun conversation, and definitely looking forward to this one. So first off, tell us how you got your job as producer of Ben & Woods. How did that come about?
So I've been with Ben & Woods since the beginning, which was March of 2018, and I'd been doing radio for about five years before that. I was with the Mighty 1090, and I was doing the morning show there for a few months. And the guy that I was producing for that show, his contract was up at the end of December. I guess that would have been 2017. And so his contract was up. And so Ben and I were doing like the Christmas week, like that week between Christmas and New Year's, just kind of like filling in. You know, Ben was just a fill-in host. And then on January 1st, we found out, hey, this guy's contract is up and he's not coming back. He got another job. Ben, can you fill in for another day? And we're like, okay, sure. And then it was, hey, Ben, can you fill in for tomorrow and the next day? And it turned into like 3 months of me still there doing the mornings or producing everything. And then Ben was just kind of getting strung along with like different co-hosts. And, you know, is he going to be the full-time morning show? We didn't know. And then, yeah, mid to late March. So that was January 1st. And so it went until the middle of March. And honestly, like he would probably tell you the same thing, kind of out of nowhere, Woods' name popped into the mix. And our boss at the time was like, he called Ben and he goes, hey, why don't you meet Stephen Woods for the first time and see
It
if
was
you guys
lunch.
think
It was
you could
over lunch, right?
Yeah, I think they went and grabbed a beer at a place up in Encinitas that we go to. And so it was like, hey, see if you guys can figure out a show and let me know by the end of the day. Like you had a couple of hours to figure it out. And so it, you know, obviously like they clicked. And so since me and Ben were already there, we brought Woods on, and then Ben & Woods became Ben & Woods. And then, you know, if you know your radio history here in San Diego, the Mighty 1090 about a year later went out of business and folded. And so we were free agents. And luckily 97.3 The Fan, they wanted to keep our show together. And so they didn't just hire Ben & Woods, they also brought me along. And Ben & Woods both kind of said, hey, you know, if we talk to any radio stations, like just so you know, like we're a 3-man team, it's a 3-person show. We want you to be along there with us. So it's been a lot of fun over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Did you think, you know, at that time, you know, during that lunch or shortly thereafter, that it would turn into what it has?
Not at all. To be honest, not at all. So 3 years, it's not that long, obviously, but in radio terms, that's a pretty long lifetime for a show. Obviously, there are shows that, you know, break the mold and they can last for 20 years. And then there are some shows that they're here and then they're gone in 6 months. It's just the way the business is sometimes. So whether it's the host not quite getting along or, you know, money's tight and they get laid off, sometimes shows just don't make it past a year. We felt probably 6 months in, I would say, is when we kind of started to feel like things were starting to click for us. And we were, you know, it takes a while to get comfortable with other people. And I mean, it was probably 6 to 8 months before we got to the point where Woods could just like look at me and he would already know what soundbite I was about to play or like what funny drop I was going to play. We didn't have to like text each other or turn the mics off really quick and whisper it. Like we just knew it was just like a look or like a point or something like that. So we kind of knew we had something special there. And then I got to go back to February, I think it was February of 2019, the Manny Machado day, the day that Manny Machado announced that Jeff Passan announced that Manny was coming to San Diego. We were on the air at that time. And it's to this day an absolutely iconic moment for me in my career and for us as a show. I'll never forget that day. And we really do feel like that was the jumping off point for us, that really, we want to be the home for Padres fans on the radio. And I think we try to do a pretty good job about that. And I really do believe that was kind of the launching point for that. I mean, if I had to remember, it was about 9:20 in the morning when that tweet came out. We went on the air until 10, and we stayed on the air for like another hour.
Oh, Maya lost him. Connection.
Yeah, ever since then, man, it's been a pretty crazy ride. We never thought we'd get here. But it feels really good to kind of start to reach some of your goals as a show, for sure.
Definitely. What's your process kind of like in booking guests? I had talked with Matt Scraby earlier this year, and he was more about, going through Tony a little bit and Chris, or reaching out on social media. Is that the same for you? What's kind of that process like for you?
Yeah. So the first thing I always do is I run it by Ben and Woods and kind of see who they want to talk to, because we may have different ideas on guests. I like basketball a lot more than Woods. We don't have a team here, so it's not super important, but like, right. I may think it's a good idea. Like, hey, we should have this NBA guy on and, talk a little hoops, but Ben and Woods are the guys that have to do the interview for the most part. So if they're not excited about it, it's not going to be a good interview. And vice versa. If there's somebody that they really want me to book on the show, but I think that person's kind of boring, or, I don't care about what they really are there for, like, it doesn't matter because I'm not doing the interview. If it's the Paul Reindl show, I'll book whoever I want, but it is a group effort. We've gotten to the point where I think we're a little bit different from a lot of radio shows. There's a lot of shows that'll have at least 2, maybe 3 guests, 1 guest per hour or something like that. Like that's just their style. And that used to be our style. We've had bosses in the past that said like, hey, you have to have 3 guests every day. And we're like, all right, I guess. And then we've just kind of grown to think, you know what? Unless it's somebody that we really want to talk to, or it's really big breaking news kind of a thing, we are only going to book guests when we want to talk to the guests. And we've gotten to the point where we pretty much only have at most 1 or 2 guests per show, usually just 1. We do a 3-hour show, and quite frankly, it's like, if you can't get through a 3-hour show without having more than 1 or 2 guests, you probably need to work on putting your show together. Like, that means you're using the guests as a crutch. And so we don't really want to do that. So at this point, we kind of got a good rhythm. Like, Jesse Agler from the Padres, we talk to him every Tuesday at 8:35. Like, when we get done with Monday's show, I don't even think about booking another guest for Tuesday, unless, of course, there's major breaking news or something. We can kind of adjust, but for the most part, we kind of have things set up how we like it right now. And then as far as reaching out to the guests, it's all about networking, working through other people. There are, like, to get big guests, we've had like Ice Cube on our show a couple of times. That comes from a PR firm that is like, hey, Ice Cube's available to do radio interviews. Other than that, we have these like media directories for like, all the major sports, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. And they've got like every team's information, every beat writer that covers that team, local news and radio hosts, and it's got all their cell phones and email addresses in there. So, if I wanted to say like, oh dang, the Padres got a really big series coming up against the Milwaukee Brewers. Do we know anybody in Milwaukee? No, we don't. I can like go to the Milwaukee section of the directory and be like, oh, here's a couple of names from some local morning show guys out in Milwaukee, and maybe scoop them out on Twitter, kind of see, do they have a lot of followers? Are they engaged? Like, are they talking baseball? Because if they're only talking about the Bucks or something and not the Brewers, then it probably wouldn't be a very good interview for us. So a lot of factors go into it, but it really starts with just connecting with Ben and Woods and just be like, hey, is there anybody in particular that you guys want to talk to this week?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Moving to the Padres now, wide view here. What % chance would you give them to make the postseason based on how they're playing, based on their schedule, based on the Reds, Phillies, and Cardinals schedules? What % chance do you think you'd put on them right now?
Right now, what is it? September 9th. It's crazy. The odds, like the percentages, if you watch, they're changing rapidly, like every day. Like every win or loss can, really bring you down or move you a lot. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, me and Ben Woods was on vacation, just me and Ben. And on Monday, the Padres had like a 58% chance of making the playoffs. And by Thursday, they had like a 26% chance. Like it cut it in half 4 days.
Yeah.
So as things stand right now, coming off that game against the Angels, I'm probably like right in between like 30 to 40%, which I think is higher than like the actual mathematics. I think it's like 26% right now, somewhere right around the 26, 28%. I just think that I still think this team has a little bit of fight left in them, and this answer could be completely different in like 10 days. They got a huge road trip coming up with the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Cardinals. And that's going to really make or break the season, in my opinion. If they can come out of there with going 6-4, maybe, and then depending on how the Reds do and how everything falls out. The good news is right now they still control their own destiny. They have the lead in the wild card, and it's all right there in front of them. I think the pitching has started to come around. I'm still very concerned about the offense, but with the pitching starting to look a lot, I mean, Chris Paddock's looked better since coming back. Jake Arrieta, as much as we all laughed at them bringing him in, he hasn't been that bad in his couple of starts here at the Padres. Blake Snell's pitching out of his freaking mind right now, and Darvish looked pretty good the other day as well. And then Musgrove is pretty consistent and as solid as it gets. So I like where the pitching's at, and if they can just keep that run total down, you got to just hope that the offense at some point is going to figure it out here and get rolling.
Yeah, I had them going 6-4. I'm not predicting them going 6-4, but I'm saying I think that if they go 6-4 on this road trip, nothing spectacular, no 8-2 or anything like that. But if they go 6-4, I think that still puts them in a good spot, because the schedule obviously is not going to get easier. I think if they play like that the rest of the way and just hope that the Reds kind of don't play as well against bad teams, I think they can still be in a good spot. It's one of those weird things where the Padres play up to the competition, but then they don't. They play like down to the Rockies and Diamondbacks like we've seen this year. And so I'm kind of hoping that the Reds do that same thing where they're playing the Pirates and Tigers and Cubs, teams that have nothing to lose, and they can go out, and those teams that they're playing with nothing to lose, they're going to end up beating them. I guess that's the only big hope that I have in terms of their direction, their chances of making the postseason. Again, it was like 90. What was it? Upper 90s percent.
I mean, at one point they had like
season.
a 97, I think, at one point.
Yeah, that's the thing. On paper, right, going into the year, it was Padres, Dodgers, and everyone else, and we weren't even considering the Giants, and the Giants now are obviously in first. But let's move to Eric Hosmer. Are you in the crowd of people that believe that he should not be starting on an everyday basis?
Yeah, I am. And quite frankly, I just, I've been really trying to pull for the guy his entire time here in San Diego. At this point, if you're not on that side, I don't know what game you're watching. It's tough because the guy's been playing a long time. He's a veteran. You want to believe that there's something in there somewhere, and you just are hoping for it to come out. But at the same time, these are really important games, and you have to put your best 9 or your best 8, plus the pitcher. You got to put your best 8 out there every single game. And right now, I think he's hurting us a lot more than he's helping us. It'd be one thing if he was going 3 for 4 every night and then just had really suspect defense at first base. But he's not going 3 for 4 every night, and he does have really suspect defense over at first. And you look at this team. I still don't quite know why we brought in like an Adam Frazier at the deadline, but regardless, the guy's an all-star. He was leading the league in hits when you got him, and then to just have to platoon him at second base kind of seems like a waste. And I'm thinking, you know what, Cronenworth is going to be in the lineup every day, and he can play first base. And quite frankly, I think he can play defensively better than Hosmer is right now. So I would have Cronenworth at first. I would have Frazier at second. I would be moving Tatis back to short, and I'd have Machado at third, and that would be my infield every day from now on.
We know that's not going to happen, but Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but there's no way that Tatis is, moving back to short like that. I would be in that camp too, because I understand your point. I think Grisham should be playing center field more often than not. And you mentioned, Hosmer's defense. I mean, what was with that play last night where he, goes the opposite direction of where he's supposed to be lunging towards? I've seen him do that, and it's like, wow, that's a good play from him when the ball's, it's not a good throw, but it was right to him and he went backwards. And so and then, you talk about what was that, last weekend or something, where he doesn't cover the bag, or he covers the bag, but he's late. And then, I mean, we could talk about Profar too. I think Profar is a better option at first. I think that's a good option, especially when you have Tatis in the outfield still. And so you want Jake at short. And then you can have Frazier at second, or Kim, or whoever. And then Profar, he's having way better at bats, in my opinion, than Hosmer is. And he's been pretty dang good defensively. I don't know about you, but he's been pretty good defensively at first base. Stretching, he can stretch. Hosmer can't for some reason. And I don't know, he just energy wise, he brings something that Hosmer just doesn't do. But what
Profar, he brings a
Yeah.
spark that a lot of players don't. I mean, he's kind of got that's what he does. He's got that energetic, that buzz and that spark. He's not a natural first baseman defensively, but you said it. He works in at bat just as good as anybody else in baseball. I mean, he has got a really good eye at the plate. I think he's the perfect utility guy. He's what every team wants in a utility guy, I think. With Hosmer, those plays that you mentioned that we talked about, the thing for me is those are all mental mistakes, and mental mistakes are at this point in the season unacceptable. You can't help it if a ball takes a bad hop or something. That stuff happens in baseball. It's the mental mistakes. That play where he was late getting to the bag, that looks like a mental error to me, like he didn't know that the shift was on or something.
Mm-hmm.
The play last night against the Angels where he took the ball on the backside of the bag, that is a play that happens sometimes. Like there's a situation where that calls for it. That was not at all the situation. And so just, I don't know what it is. I wouldn't go as far to call it laziness. I just think he's just not mentally, they're mental mistakes. And that's, you got 2.5 weeks left, whatever it is, like trying to make a playoff push here, man. There's no room for error right now. You kind of lost as a team. You lost that privilege of having some room for error in September based on how you did in the first 3 months of the season and how you've done in the last 2.5 months. There's no room. You gotta go all out right now.
What's most frustrating for you from Eric Hosmer in his Padres tenure? Is it the contract? Is it him not producing offensively? Is it him not producing defensively? Is it both offensively and defensively? Where would you identify that? I think the contract's part of it, obviously. If he was making $600,000 a year, people wouldn't be, I don't think they'd be as, pissed off. But where do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, that you're totally right about the money. If he wasn't making, $20 million a year, it's not as big of an issue. But let's, just to be clear, like that's not Hosmer's fault that they gave him that money. Like anybody in their right mind would have signed that contract, and I don't blame a guy for getting his. As far as living up to the contract, yeah, that's on the player. But what's he gonna? He's not gonna call AJ Preller and just say, "Hey, you know what? I haven't quite been living up to this contract. Here's $80 million back." Mm-hmm. That's just not how it works. So that's no fault of his own. Cash in if you can, man. But I think for me, it's probably a little bit of both, defensively and offensively. Offensively, I think the biggest. It was just a bummer, like a disappointment when there were the comments that he made about really not like being comfortable enough in his swing already as it is, and not wanting to make the adjustments with like his launch angle and all of that, because you watch game after game after game, like how many times does he just, roll over to second base on a ground ball? The statistics, the advanced metrics are there to help these guys. And they're saying, you got to get the launch angle. And, I don't remember the quote verbatim, but it was along the lines of, I'm happy with where I'm at. And, I don't really want to make those adjustments. That was a bummer to me. Like I want players that want to be better always, I mean, we talk about golf all the time on our show because we all go out and play together. And it's just like, I'm shooting mid 90s right now. And I want to shoot mid 80s. And if I do get to shooting the mid 80s, guess what? Then I want to break 80 and shoot in the 70s. Like I want to always be better. Defensively, you signed a guy with multiple gold gloves and you just see some of the plays that he's made or not made, I should say. And you're just kind of like scratching your head and going, how did you win multiple gold gloves? Like what's going on here? And so that is frustrating. Of course, you're paying all that money. It all adds up to it, but I'd say it's a little bit of both offense and defense.
Yeah, defensively, you talk about the gold gloves, and when he first came over, what was it, first year that he came over in the Houston game on the Bregman pop-up, and he just overruns it and it falls right over his head and the Astros win. It's like, wow, this is really what the player that, they gave that much money to. Now I've obviously been one of those people. I'm not here to, just bash Hosmer all the time. But as the season has gone on, I don't know about you, but as the season has gone on, it's been harder and harder for me to kind of put that, shield on of trying to say that, no, Hosmer's okay. He's a veteran presence in the clubhouse. And like, it's just getting to a point now where it's not happening once a week. It's happening like every series.
Yeah, I'll say this about, like the leader in the clubhouse. I don't know how much that's worth to teams, and I don't know how much of an impact it makes because I'm not on a major league roster. Like I'm not in the clubhouse with these guys. But every time we go down on the field, man, like, we were just down there a couple of days ago as a show, and the guys, like, it looks like they look up to Eric Hosmer. Like they are they're always huddled around him. Like he's their guy. And that's not a lie that like people, it's not like some made up storyline narrative. Like it's true. They love Eric Hosmer.
And that's why they probably got a lot, the players got pissed off when AJ, was saying that he was going to trade him and trying to trade him, and then it didn't happen. I think that's where maybe the clubhouse did kind of get a little, pissed off.
It's certainly possible. I mean, I don't know for sure. We're not in there, right now as a part of the media. We're not allowed into the clubhouse like we used to be. You used to be after the game, you could walk right up to somebody's locker, and if they wanted to talk, you could have a conversation, but we're not able to do that right now. And so that limits things. You can only just kind of go off what you're seeing, like during batting practice and all that. And they love the guy. But yeah, it's just right now, you got to just ask yourself, I think, does he give us the best chance to win at first base? And if not, how do you justify putting him out there every day? That's what's tough for me.
Mm-hmm. Moving to Jayce Tingler, do you think that he stays? I know Preller said that he will, and he wants him to be a manager here for 10 years and blah, 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 blah. Do you think that he stays if the Padres don't make the playoffs?
I would say, I guess anything's possible, of course, but my guess would be that he's still here next year. I think if you fired Jayce Tingler, to me, it feels like him and AJ Preller are kind of tied together at the hip right now. Like he is AJ's last chance at kind of saving his time here in San Diego. AJ's ran through a couple of managers now. We've had a couple of different rebuilds in Preller's tenure. And I think we all can agree, like, hey, we got the pieces now, like, let's put it all together. And if this doesn't work, I don't think it's just like, if Tingler's gone, I think it's because AJ's also gone. It's weird. I don't know how much like stock to put into a manager as far as how much they determine wins and losses these days. Their lineups are handed to them by computers, analytical guys are like, this is what the lineup should be today. There's bullpen management. They'll call for steals and stuff like that. And Tingler is absolutely still a very young manager, and he's learning a lot of that on the go. But as far as like the outcomes, like, dude, he's not telling, these guys to go on like 0 for 24 cold streaks like we've seen guys go on this year. Like, he's not telling Ryan Weathers to go up and give 8 runs in the second inning. Like, at some point that, the players also got to bear some responsibility here. And I think if the Padres don't make the playoffs this year, it'd be a massive disappointment and it would be a massive failure. But I think to pin it all on one person or 2 people, I think is not fair because, you were just talking about how bad Hosmer is offensively. Well, he's like 3rd on the team in average, and batting average maybe doesn't mean what it used to like 20 years ago, but still, like, we call them the baseball statistics, the baseball card stats, right? Like, what everybody flip back and it's like home runs, batting average, and RBIs. And you're like, oh, Hosmer's like right there in the middle of everything. So, he's not the worst player in that sense, in that regard, but, you lose Tatis a couple of times throughout the year. Your pitching has been pretty inconsistent. Is that on Jayce Tingler? Is that on Larry Rothschild? Or is that on the pitchers themselves to pitch up to the way they're supposed to? I don't know.
Yeah. You talked about the rotation. Would you rank? I want to see your ranking of the starting rotation right now in terms of your confidence level in them. Just 1 through, well, it would be 4 technically, but 1 through 5. Mine's Musgrove, Snell, Darvish, Paddock, and then Arrieta. Where would you rank, guys?
As far as like confidence and giving them the ball for a
game? Let's say
game?
It's like a wild card game. Your confidence in them. Who would it be? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it sucks that 1 game wild card because you might have to use like 2 of your best pitchers the weekend before to get to it. So, in a perfect world, let's call it a perfect scenario. Like, we're well rested and you can have your choice. I'm going Snell game 1, and it's not even a question right now. The way he's pitched over the last. I mean, it's not just a couple of starts.
Right.
It's since the start of July or of August. I mean, his last 7 or 8 starts have just been electric. And I think even his struggles before this hot streak that he's on, he wasn't like throwing the ball in the dirt every time. He wasn't sailing it over the catcher. Like, he was just missing by like a fraction of an inch.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of started to figure that out. And his stuff is just filthy. So I would go, I'd go Snell 1. I'd probably go, if he's healthy, like fully, like actually healthy, I'd probably go Darvish 2, just because he's so dynamic. I mean, he's got like 14 different pitches. He's pitched in a lot of big games. I like Darvish there. I'd go Musgrove number 3. He may not be your best pitcher, but he's probably been your most consistent pitcher all year.
That's why I have him 1. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, that's important. And he's obviously he threw a no-hitter. Like, he's had complete game opportunities. Like, he can give you that length. But he's also had some stinkers, just like they all have. So I would go, Snell, Darvish, Musgrove. And then honestly, it's probably a coin flip. I guess Paddock, because we've seen more of him than Arrieta in a Padres uniform. But Arrieta's looked pretty good in his first 2 starts. Like, I don't even want to say pretty good. I'd just say a lot better than I would have thought. And
the first start in Colorado wasn't, great, but the second
wasn't, but his defense did not help him out. They left him in a couple of innings. It's like a fly ball catch here and a ground ball out there that should have been made. And like all of a sudden he gets out of that inning and it's not that big of a deal. And then, he gave up the 1 home run, I think it was last Friday, against the Astros, who are a good team. They beat a lot of good pitchers. Other than that, he pitched really good 5 innings. And I'm not trying to make it sound like Arrieta's, the 2015 version of Jake Arrieta. He's not. But considering what we all thought was going to happen when they signed him, I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, he's pitching better than the 6.88 ERA or whatever he had coming in.
Well, what he's doing is he's allowing you to have 5 starters instead of 4 starters in a bullpen day.
Yeah. I mean, I read AC's, morning newsletter, and he has, the charts and the, schedule what the Padres could do. And it's allowing, like your point, it's allowing them to, insert Arrieta wherever he needs to be, like 2 more times the rest of the year or something, instead of, like you mentioned, working the bullpen and, having Ryan Weathers, pitch more innings than he probably should based on, he's a rookie and there's probably an innings limit that he's probably getting close to, I would assume. So yeah, he's definitely valuable in that, sense. Moving to the fans in the ballpark, my family's had season tickets, since I was 13. How cool has it been, for you to see the environment, see, the fans packed, getting, sweeping the Dodgers earlier this year. That was like the best moment at Petco probably in my life. Padres moment, obviously All-Star game was cool, but just how cool has the atmosphere been?
Atmosphere has been great. It's been super fun for me this year in particular, because me and Woods bought season tickets.
Mhm.
We bought 2 seats and we split them, just a half season plan or whatever, but it's gotten us a chance to go to a lot of games, and not have to like sit in the press box. There's been, I like 2019 or whatever, I maybe went to 30 games, but how many of those did I sit up in the press box where you're not allowed to cheer? And you're there for work, most likely. Like, very different now. Like, every Friday night, me and my wife go together and we get to sit out down the first baseline near right field, and we have our seats, and it's just been so fun because you talk about like the Dodgers games, like, man, it was not that long ago where it would have been 80% Dodger blue in our stadium, and it was sickening. And just, the let's go Dodgers chants would just drown out any, beat LA or let's go Padres. It sucked.
Yeah.
And then we also didn't have the team on the field to back it up, which was even worse. And so now, like, I was at that game, what was it, in June, when they swept LA. And I remember it might have been the 9th inning, maybe it was the 8th, but it was late in the game, and they started the beat LA chant. I took out my phone and we're kind of sitting behind home plate, and I just kind of panned around the stadium. And I mean, dude, it was a Wednesday night, and those games don't always sell out for a lot of teams. Like, we had a sold out Petco Park on a Wednesday night, 40,000 plus, screaming beat LA, beat LA.
And then sweep LA after. Yeah, I was there.
Sweep LA.
The stadium was shaking. Yeah.
The way that game ended too, with Manny's play at third, I mean, it was just, it was epic. It was a moment that definitely, like, is gonna, we didn't get to be there for the no hitter. It was in Texas this year, and that's too bad. But I would say, as far as moments in San Diego, you look at the first game back when they had all the fans, like 100% back in June against, I think it was the Reds, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, the walk-off home run from Caratini, like, I get chills even thinking about it, like, just how special that was, just given everything that's gone on over the last year and a half, and no fans there last year. And so to get, the first game back in San Diego to 100% capacity, and you win it on a walk-off like that, it's just, the team has provided this city with some really awesome moments already. I hope they're not done yet. I don't think they're quite done yet. I think they still got a little bit left in the tank. But it has been so much fun to, whether you're watching it on TV or hearing it through the radio, you can hear the crowd, you can hear the energy. These sound like playoff games already. And we just barely got into September. And then to be at the games that you get to go to, yeah, man, it's been so much fun. It's different. You're there to watch baseball and be a part of the baseball game now. It's not just, well, the Padres kind of suck, but it's Friday night. It'll be fun to go out with the boys, have a couple of beers. Like, no, you're there to watch a baseball game now.
Right. So let's do some quick hitters here. If the Padres don't make the postseason, I know I keep saying if they don't make the postseason, it sounds like I'm Mr. Negative. That's definitely the opposite of what I try to do. But if they don't make the postseason, what's, one move that you would want to see happen? Well, it could be anything. It could be front office, manager, player addition, player subtraction. It could really be anything.
Yeah, I think if they don't make the playoffs, first and foremost, they need to figure out what they're doing with Eric Hosmer. If they're going to try to move him again, just get it done so we don't have to deal with this during the trade deadline again. I don't know if that means they're going to have to eat a bunch of money on the contract or not. I would assume they probably will. So if you're going to have to bite that bullet, just bite the bullet. Let's get it over with and let's move forward. And I don't know if that means they're going to bring in another first baseman. I don't know if they're going to maybe make Cronenworth their everyday first baseman then, if that were to happen, because I think Frazier's still under contract for next year as well. Other than that, I would like to see them probably address the pitching staff. I'm still just not sold quite yet on Chris Paddock being your everyday starter for the next few years. You have Snell, you have Musgrove, and I think you even have Darvish under control for a couple more years.
Two more, yep. You have Clevenger back next year. You have
so
Morihone, Gore, hopefully.
Yeah, but again, those are all huge question marks.
Yeah.
And I think back to prior to spring training of this year, we were like, we have so many pitchers, we don't know what to do with them. And things happen, man. People get hurt, guys get traded, like whatever it is, guys don't perform the way you wanted to. Like, yeah, ideally you would love to add Clevenger, Lamet, Gore, like right there into your rotation, but I don't know that Dinelson Lamet ever starts a game ever again, unless it's like an opener, for a bullpen game. I think his days are probably done as a starter. Mackenzie Gore, like, dude, if he's not here by this point, I don't know what's going on with him. And then Clevenger, anytime you're coming off of Tommy John surgery, it's no guarantee that they're going to just come back and be electric. So if you can go out and just get maybe another starter, maybe even two, and if you have to push guys back into the bullpen roles, that's only good news. Like, that's Cadillac problems. That's having too many good starting pitchers, so you turn them into some relief pitchers. The relief pitchers overall, I think this year have done a pretty good job. They've just been so overworked, and that's not their fault. That's the team's fault. That's the starting pitcher's fault. That's the offense for not being able to get anything going for the starting pitchers. Like, it's not the bullpen's fault that they've been overworked, but now you're just like, man, like, I don't know how many more bullets left do some of these guys have. I don't know. I want to make sure we address the depth there. And then, we'll see what happens in the outfield. You still have Grisham. You still got Willie out and right. Tommy Pham's a free agent. No idea who's going to play left next year. But you got to think with Tatis eventually getting back to shortstop permanently, probably going to have to add another outfielder or two as well.
Yeah. All right. Your favorite Padre all time?
Favorite Padre all time? I mean, I moved down here in 2009, so it's a little like I'd feel dirty like saying Trevor Hoffman or Tony Gwynn, because I wasn't here and like rooting for them. I remember I grew up in Seattle. Like, I grew up as a Mariners fan as a kid, and we just never really saw a whole lot of the Padres because they're just in the National League. And so I've gotten to know Trevor Hoffman a little bit. I've gotten to know Andy Ashby and some of those guys, and they're awesome. Like, it's the coolest thing in the world to be able to call them a friend now. But I wouldn't say that I didn't sit there and root for them or anything like that. It's probably Manny Machado, man. He's just, I hate because he's only been here for like 2 years. It makes me sound like a front runner or something. But man, like, how many, you go over the years, like how many just forgettable faces did we have that just filled up uniforms, it felt like, for so many years, especially from like 2010 to 2019. I think guys like Brett Wallace and Ryan Schimpf.
Yeah,
guys
we could go down the
like,
line.
oh
We could go down the
God.
line. Spangenberg, Ibar, Alexi Ramirez.
Right. And you have a bona fide superstar. I mean, Tatis is obviously the easy answer as well, but like Manny Machado, I think he's the best third baseman on the planet at what he does, and he's yours. And I talked about what he did personally, like for our show, for Ben and Woods, and then what he's put San Diego on the map. He really did. So I would say it's probably Manny Machado.
Okay, so that falls into your favorite current Padre then too.
Favorite current, yeah.
Favorite all-time Ben and Woods guest.
Favorite all-time Ben and Woods guest, man. We just talked to Blake Snell yesterday for the either third or fourth time. We've had him on a couple of times, but it was only Zoom, and it was super fun getting to finally meet him, man. That guy is different because he just talks differently than a lot of athletes do. He's not going to just give you a cliche. He's going to speak his mind, and he wants to engage with the media, which I think is refreshing, at least. And so it was really fun to get to meet him. We talked to him for about 5 minutes on the record, and then we talked to him for another 10 minutes after we turned off the camera, which was really fun. He's probably up there. Dude, anytime you get Ice Cube on your show, it's pretty iconic. There are a couple of times that we've booked somebody on our show, and like when, say I call them and they answer the phone or something, and they're hello, and you're just like, like that's his voice. Like, that's so cool. I would say Ice Cube, Blake Snell. It's not like he was a difficult guest to book, but Steve Fisher just means the world to me. I joke, like, I call him dad because I went to San Diego State during kind of the heyday of, like, I was there in 2009, 2010, 2011, like the year that they went 34-3 and all of that. Like, just a lot of like special memories that I'll have for my whole life. Like, Steve Fisher was a big part of that. So he's been fun to book, but it's guys like Ice Cube, and we've had some comedians on, like Patrick Warburton. Maybe don't remember the name, but he played Putty in Ted in Seinfeld. He was in Ted. He does a lot of those car commercials. He's got such a distinct voice, and you've heard him in movies and television shows for so long that, like, when he answers the phone and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's Patrick. You're like, "Oh, this is cool." Like, I can hear your voice. Like, I grew up listening to this voice. Nikki Glazer, comedian. She's been fantastic to our show. It was so cool getting to chat with her. So those are a few of our favorites for sure.
Woodsy definitely loved chatting golf today with Snell on the interview I heard. Ben was a little mad about that because you wanted to talk to Blake Snell about, baseball, about the Padres, and Woodsy was, "No, how's your driver?"
Well, Ben wasn't mad at it, I would say. Ben asked his baseball questions, and they were super fair and legitimate questions. The thing that bugs me the most is, a guy hits a walk-off home run, everybody celebrates at home plate, right? And then what's the first question that gets asked? What were you looking for on that pitch? That's the most boring question. They give you the most boring answer. "Oh, I was looking for a good pitch to hit."
Good pitch to hit, yeah.
Like no crap. Of course you were. Like, I don't get that. I like it when athletes are going to open up a little bit, and I'll just say this, man. Like, it's no fault of Ben's, of course, but when Woods did ask him like some of those golf questions, you could literally see it in Snell's face. Like, he kind of like turned and like started to smile, and you could see him opening up a little bit. And I think that just makes them more relaxed because it's what they want to talk about. I mean, we could just ask him, "So, like, how's the arm feeling today?" "Feels good." "Oh man, like, you've been on a roll lately." "Yeah, everything's feeling really well. I've been working really hard." Like,
right. Like the answer that he gave about how he, gets worked on, so he's not really tired. Like, it seemed like his tone, went back to being kind of monotone there. When you got back to golf, it was like, oh, so yeah, I think that's definitely a unique part and good part of it is there's some shows that I've listened to, and it's kind of just the regular interview, or how those questions like, "How cool was it? How cool was this moment?" Well, what is he supposed to say? Like, yeah, it was cool. But
now,
yeah,
there are times when, like, writers for a newspaper or magazine, like their job is to write, like, their job for that night is to write about a specific story. And
right.
So sometimes in media, they have to ask questions that they already know the answer to, or it's already been asked before, but they need to just get the quote from the guy. And, I get it. It's because, it's like, "Hey, Jayce, how disappointing of a loss was that tonight?"
Yeah.
Well, actually, Paul, it wasn't that disappointing at all. I'm pretty happy that we lost on a walk-off to the Dodgers. Like, but of course, for all he knows, my job that day was to write a story about Tingler's frustration for losing, or whatever. Like, sometimes there's an agenda, and then sometimes there's not, and there's just lazy people in the media that just ask lazy questions.
Yeah. So I asked this question to Woods when I had him on earlier this year. He said Ted Lasso, the guy who plays Ted Lasso. Who's your most wanted Ben and Woods guest?
Jason Sudeikis, Ted Lasso. That's a good one, man. Who would be my most sought after guest? Gosh, there's so many different like directions that I could go. I would love to talk with Marshawn Lynch, I think. I've met him one time and we had just a super short conversation, and it was like the coolest thing, man. He is so misunderstood, I think, by a lot of people. And the thing is, he doesn't really have a whole lot to promote right now. He's retired. He's not really doing a whole lot. He's not analyzing games for the Raiders or anything like that. But man, like just to get some time with him one-on-one, I think would be really cool because I think he was really misunderstood. And if he's kind of like a Blake Snell in that, like I've seen interviews like Conan O'Brien had Marshawn Lynch on, and I don't think he asked him one football question. They asked him about Skittles and like, what was your favorite like video game growing up and stuff. And Marshawn was laughing his ass off and having so much fun with it. And I'm like, see, he just doesn't want to answer boring football questions. He wants to talk about stuff that he's interested in. So I think he'd probably be number one. I'd have to think about it as far as like actors, or I think like comedians are usually, we have pretty good relationships with like some of the comedy clubs in town. So like when guys come through, we're able to, at least get them on the phone. I think Dave Chappelle would be my number one in like comedy. I just think like Dave Chappelle he's funny. I mean, he could read from the dictionary and it would be funny. But he's also just so thoughtful and thought-provoking with what he has to say. It's on my bucket list to go like see him perform stand-up someday. It's kind of one of those things, like I told my wife, like, hey, if he ever does like a show in LA or something and they're $500 each, like if we have the money, like let's go, because it'll be a lot of money, like $1,000 for 2 tickets for one comedy show, but like in 30 years we'll remember like seeing Dave Chappelle, I think. And so he's on my bucket list of comedians to see, and I'd kill to have him on the show. It'd be so much fun, man.
All right, last one. Top 3 moments so far from the Padres season. I've got Musgrove's no-hitter 1, sweeping the Dodgers 2, and then Camarina's grand slam. Woodsy put O'Grady's homer as 1 for him just because of the relationship. But what about you?
Of course he put BOG there. I mean, yeah, you got to go with the no-hitter. You have to go, I think I would agree with sweep LA. And then we talked about it. I think Caratini's home run. Either Caratini's home run that night that all the fans came back, or the comeback win on Sunday night in LA.
Okay.
Sunday night baseball was pretty unbelievable. That whole weekend was just insane. Like Tatis just went
5
off.
Homers,
He just another human that weekend. So to have the whole, like, Friday's game was awesome, Saturday's game was awesome, and then to have it all build up to a huge comeback on that Sunday night baseball game, that was probably it for me. Like, that was awesome, man. These Dodger Padre games are gonna kill me, but they're so much fun.
Yeah. It's been, I mean, I was at the 16 inning game, stayed the whole way, and it was like, oh man, it's like 12, it's like 1 a.m, and you're seeing Weathers and Musgrove and Camarena hit, and I was like, oh my gosh, why are they hitting? And yeah, these games, they've been absolutely. I was at the 12-inning game, the Padre Dodger game of this season, where Seager hit the homer. They've been so. Justin Turner was right. I mean, 15 or what do you say, 19 World Series games. That's definitely what it's felt like. And so I definitely look forward to watching those starting this weekend. And that's, I guess, where we can end it. What do you need to see if you're, the Jayce Tingler? What do you need to see out of the Padres this week? And you can go extend it to the road trip. Like I mentioned, 6-4 is what I would want. I'd be good with that, for the road trip. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the road trip, I mean, the bare minimum is 5-5. If you go 5-5, they say even when it's not in a playoff push, like if you go on a road trip, if you can go 500, like that's the goal. Go 500 on the road, and then you assume that you'll go more than 500 when you're at home. So if they can go 5-5, I mean, I'm talking at worst, then I think they're in okay shape. Of course, the Reds could go 9-1 over their next 10, and that would suck. But I'm assuming that the Reds won't go 9-1. 5-5 probably keeps you at least in the hunt. Maybe you drop back a game, or you give up some space there in the wild card chase. But I think I would hope for 6-4, and just physically, like on the field, got to score some more runs, man. Got to get the offense going. You look at the 2-game series against the Angels, like, yeah, it was awesome in that second inning yesterday when the Angels gifted us 8 straight runs. But think of it like this. I mean, in 18 innings, the Padres only scored in 1 inning, and they scored all 8 runs in that 1 inning. So to go 17 scoreless innings still in those 2 games. You went 1-1, and ultimately right now it doesn't matter. Style points don't count. It's just, did you win or did you lose? If they commit 10 errors in a game but win, fine, whatever, flush it and take the win. But I think it starts with the offense. You know, try to take some heat off of the pitchers, man. The starting pitchers, make it so that they don't have to like look up at the scoreboard in the 6th inning and be like, God, I've given up 1 hit and I still might like not get a W tonight. Like, give them a little bit of run support to work with, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah. All right. This has been episode 56 of the Talking Friars podcast. Super fun with Paul Reindl of Fadden Woods. You can catch them every weekday on 97.3 The Fan in the morning. Thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time to talk.
Yeah, no worries, man. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.